24-year-old David Lawson carried a burden heavier than most men twice his age. By day, he worked as a junior accountant at a large construction company on Victoria Island. By night, he sat beside a hospital bed, watching the only person who had ever truly loved him struggle to breathe, his mother. For 6 months, she had battled kidney failure, and for 6 months, David had sold almost everything he owned trying to keep her alive. The small television in their apartment was gone. The refrigerator was gone. Even his late father's wristwatch had disappeared into the hands of a desperate buyer at Ballaghan Market. But the hospital bills kept growing. Every single day, another payment, another injection, another test, another warning from the doctors, and eventually, another deadline. One rainy Tuesday evening, David sat quietly beside his mother's bed while thunder rolled outside the hospital windows. The monitor beside her beeped softly. She looked weak now, smaller somehow, yet she still smiled whenever she saw him. "My son," she whispered gently. "Have you eaten today?" David forced a smile. "Yes, Mama." But he was lying. He had not eaten since the previous afternoon. His mother reached for his hand with trembling fingers. "You must take care of yourself too." David looked away quickly, pretending to adjust the bedsheet so she would not notice the tears forming in his eyes. The doctor entered moments later. His face carried the expression David had grown to fear, professional sympathy. "David," the doctor said quietly, "can I speak with you outside?" David already knew. The hallway smelled of antiseptic and exhaustion. The doctor folded his arms carefully. "Your mother needs another dialysis session immediately." David nodded slowly. "How much?" The doctor hesitated. 480,000 naira. David felt the ground shift beneath him. "That's impossible." "I'm sorry," the doctor replied softly. "But delaying treatment any longer could become very dangerous." Dangerous. David hated that word, because in hospitals, dangerous usually meant one thing. Death was approaching. He thanked the doctor quietly and walked toward the stairwell. The moment the door closed behind him, he collapsed onto the concrete steps and buried his face in his hands. For the first time in months, he broke down completely, not because he was weak, but because he was tired. Tired of pretending things would somehow improve. Tired of hearing numbers he could never afford. Tired of watching his mother fade away while he stood helplessly beside her. His phone vibrated suddenly. It was a message from his landlord. "Last warning, pay your rent this week or vacate the apartment." David laughed bitterly. It was the kind of laugh that comes when pain becomes too familiar. That night, after leaving the hospital, he boarded a crowded bus back to the island. Rain hammered against the windows while passengers argued over change and conductors shouted into the storm. But David heard none of it. His mind was elsewhere, at work, inside the finance office, inside the company vault. Earlier that afternoon, his supervisor had mentioned that a large cash payment meant for contractors would remain overnight before being transferred the next morning. Nearly 15 million naira. The thought entered David's mind quietly, like a whisper. Then he tried to push it away. But desperation has a dangerous way of returning forbidden thoughts. By the time the bus stopped near his apartment, the idea had already taken root. David barely slept that night. He stared at the ceiling while darkness swallowed the room around him. His mother's face kept appearing in his mind. Then the doctor's voice. Delaying treatment could become dangerous. At 2:13 a.m., David sat upright suddenly. Sweat covered his forehead. And in that moment, he made the worst decision of his life. The next morning, Lagos moved with its usual chaos. Street hawkers chased cars through traffic. Danfo drivers insulted one another. Office workers hurried through crowded streets with tired eyes and empty stomachs. But David walked through it all like a man already haunted. At work, he could barely focus. Every tick of the office clock tightened the knot in his chest. By evening, most employees had gone home. Only a few security guards remained downstairs. David sat alone in the finance department pretending to finish reports. Then finally, 6:47 p.m. Silence. His breathing became heavier. Slowly, he stood up. His legs felt numb as he walked toward his supervisor's office. Each step felt unreal, like he was watching someone else commit the crime. The access key hung inside the drawer exactly where he knew it would be. David froze. This was his last chance to walk away. But then his phone buzzed again. Another message from the hospital. Urgent payment required tonight. His hands trembled violently, and before fear could stop him, he took the key. Minutes later, the vault door opened. Cold air rushed outward. Stacks of cash sat inside secured containers. More money than David had ever seen in his entire life. His heart pounded so loudly he thought the building itself could hear it. He grabbed one bag, then another, breathing fast, thinking only one thing. Mama must live. Mama must live. Mama must live. Then suddenly, footsteps. David froze. A security guard's voice echoed faintly from the hallway. Anybody still upstairs? David's chest tightened instantly. He switched off the vault light and stood completely still. The footsteps grew closer, then stopped. Silence. A few terrifying seconds passed. Finally, the footsteps faded away. David exhaled shakily. Without thinking further, he grabbed the bags and rushed out through the emergency stairwell. That night, for the first time in months, the hospital accepted full payment immediately. Doctors rushed his mother into treatment. David sat outside the dialysis unit staring at the floor while guilt crawled through his chest like poison. He had done it. He had actually stolen millions. And somehow nobody knew yet. But peace never comes from stolen things. The next morning, chaos erupted at the company. Police officers arrived before noon. Managers shouted across hallways. Security footage was reviewed repeatedly. David tried to remain calm, but fear had already started destroying him from the inside. Then came the discovery that shattered everything. One camera had captured part of his face. Not clearly enough for certainty, but enough for suspicion. By evening, David was called into the conference room. 3 police officers waited inside. His supervisor looked devastated. "David," one officer said carefully, "where were you between 6 and 7 yesterday evening?" David opened his mouth, but no words came out, because deep inside, he already knew his life would never be the same again.